Donald Trump don't trust China. China is asshole. China is asshole. China is asshole. China is asshole. China is asshole.
China is going to pass us as the #1 global superpower. When did that happen?
Is this the first you've heard of China? Do you not keep up with world events?
The last time I checked, America was on top in everything, except soccer. And that's because we didn't try.
I'm not gonna worry about China. Everything is fine.
No.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Flashback to 2016. Jump in the time machine with me if you would, and check out the Christian Science Monitor reporting that Trump shouldn't be using a scary bad word to describe how China is treating the United States and its citizens, its taxpayers globally. The economy was being ambushed by Chinese propaganda, Chinese espionage, intellectual property theft, and Trump was calling them out. Now, the media, left and right, since 2016, had wanted to criticize Trump for anything. Everyone knows that they criticized Trump for how he talked about Mexicans, how he talked about the Chinese, how he pronounced certain words like China, and then everything else they could think of. They also did report and tried to slander the president, then the presidential candidate Trump, by saying that only the worst people in China actually supported him. Because if you recall, there was a huge support from the people of China for President Trump, then candidate Trump. The News Time magazine even was reporting that there were a ton of people in China that did support Trump, and especially after the first debate. We're looking at just a couple of the paragraphs in here. You can see that Donald Trump was calling the United States a third world country in comparison to how China has continued to maintain and update its infrastructure. Hillary was just saying how she had kept her exports up by 50% as the Secretary of State, but people kind of saw, even early on in those debates, how Donald Trump was setting the stage from the United States versus what should have been the future of the United States, what should have been the trading power and the global power that the United States should have been, and instead it was being crippled by the Chinese. Everything that the United States does for the rest of the world, China benefits from, because they don't have to do it. They can continue to focus inward. And you know that China's always been an isolated, turned inward kind of nation. So this is a historical thing for China. This is nothing new. But like American voters, the Chinese saw that Trump was a powerful beacon of free energy, of human energy, who's going to take down global propagandists, the people who set out to enslave humanity. And the Chinese are the first and biggest victims of that. So of course that they're going to support Trump. This biggest piece here I highlighted. Lu Pin is the founding editor of the Chinese feminist magazine, and she had written, or rather is quoted saying, the Chinese government criticized Hillary Clinton's support of human rights activities. So of all the people that are going to support human rights, Hillary Clinton was criticized by the Chinese government. Chinese government party, the Chinese Communist Party, does not welcome human rights in China. And it's highlighted right there. This is from their own folks, their own people, are saying they do not welcome human rights in their country. That should scare everyone. That should scare everyone. And this is the last piece I thought was especially scary and interesting. Of all those people in China watching those debates in 2016, they were thinking their kids or their kids' kids could one day lead the United States. The citizens of China are seeing the United States as a tool to one day be used, a weapon to one day be wielded in the global economy, that the United States can be the dog on the leash, and that one day a Chinese American may be the president and have those same feelings. That's a fearful thought to have. Now you can look at ABC News has put this together. It's a really nice little clip that they have, rather an article put together with clips of Donald Trump criticizing China. Now I'm sure that they thought when they put this together way back in, what was this, 2017, November 9, 2017, so a year after his election on November 8th, they put this together thinking that this would be a smear, that everyone would watch this and see he shouldn't have been criticizing China at all. This is 10 instances of Trump being mean, but it's not. It's 10 instances of Trump being correct, and we can look at each and every one of them together. They point out that when Donald Trump was campaigning, he promised that he would call China a currency manipulator, and when he was elected that didn't happen. He instead softened up, as the article says, because when you become the president, you have bigger perspectives, bigger purviews of what you're able to see. And I'm sure that when he was elected, he thought 100% he would go in full guns a-blazing against China. I'm sure he then saw all the different things that China had their hands in and decided that maybe limiting them to a list with Japan and Switzerland and other countries might be a softer and better, more tactful approach. But instead of the media being wise to that and saying, oh, he's being diplomatic, they're instead critical of him for not being so hot-headed with China. That doesn't make any sense to me, other than the media doesn't like Donald Trump, but that makes a total sense. So here are some unconventional slights Trump either said, written, or tweeted about China in the past. ABC News writes this. Trump: I don't blame China for the imbalances. That's not the full quote. He said that he doesn't blame them for taking advantage, because any country's leadership, if they had the ability to take advantage of some great country like the United States, he should. Donald Trump said that if he could take advantage of the world like China has, he would. That is what he said. I don't blame China for having done it. That's a snide, tongue-in-cheek way of saying they're to blame, and they know that they're to blame, that they did this intentionally. The next piece: Trump's diplomatic dance on North Korea tops agenda for meeting with Chinese president. Yeah, of course, it would be more important to go meet with North Korea than to go meet with China. China is an ally, apparently, supposedly. North Korea is not. Here, Twitter on March 30th, 2013, then private citizen Donald J. Trump, quote, China is the biggest environmental polluter in the world by far. They do nothing to clean up their factories, and they laugh at our stupidity. Thank you, ABC, for putting this together, because he was correct. Campaigning in 2016, we can't continue to allow China to blank our country, and that's what they're doing. This is the greatest theft in the history of the world. That was also quoted in the previous article with ABC, and you saw that he had to soften up a bit there, but he was correct in saying it, and it's not false or incorrect to make a statement and then not be able to follow through on the consequences of that statement being true. ABC knows this because ABC knew about Epstein and they did nothing about it. So, September 21st, 2001, quote, China is neither an ally nor a friend. They want to beat us and own our country. That was Donald Trump in 2011. And then in Manchester in 2016, the single biggest weapon used against us to destroy our companies and devalue our currencies. The greatest ever is China. Very smart, and they're like the grand chess masters. We are like checkers players, bad ones. He is saying China is neither an ally nor a friend. They want to beat us and own our country. We are playing a very stupid game compared to what they are doing. That's a completely valid point to make. Then in August 8th of 2012, then private citizen Trump, quote, no surprise that China was caught cheating in the Olympics. That's the Chinese MO. Lie, cheat, and steal in all international dealings. Lie, cheat, and steal in all international dealings. Good Morning America in 2015. But you see, China, there are fierce people in terms of negotiation. They want to take your throat out. They want to cut you apart. These are tough people. I've dealt with them all my life. End quote. Donald Trump clearly knows what he's dealing with China because he has said so for the better part of a decade. And for the media to blast him for the last few years for criticizing China, that is wrong. And now we're seeing it's obvious. Now, going back to the currency manipulation, Trump could have labeled them a currency manipulator. There's a pretty decent write-up from MSNBC on the fact that he didn't, but they don't explain why he didn't. It does kind of note that they put the country of China on a list with a bunch of other countries that are also active in currency manipulation, but because of the volume of trade that we do with China globally, he couldn't risk putting the United States economy in jeopardy to make a point with China before he had enough power to do so. And when you're a newly elected president, the first thing you do isn't probably go and take a huge swing at the only other real significant world power. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about was exactly what the popularity of Trump is in China before and today. You have people from all walks of life writing articles for the mainstream news talking about how anyone that supports Trump is bad, anyone that supports the evangelical Christianity that really got Trump into office is bad. But this article specifically highlights here, and I highlighted this bottom part, it talks about how the evangelical Christianity piece of the country in the United States propelled Donald Trump to the top, to the platform that he has today, and that the American nationalism is what secures him. But in China, the popularity for Trump is purely the fact that he completely disregards and negates any of the leftist the leftist ideology that is being pushed on them from the top down. Donald Trump stands to represent the free, loving, human energy that stands against what the Chinese Communist Party stands for. And so that is the number one reason why the people in China support Donald Trump, and that is why the people of Hong Kong support Donald Trump and need his support. That is why the people, even in this article that are being discussed, they say these people are loyal and passionate about their support for Donald Trump, and they are the business owners. They are the entrepreneurs. These are the people who ultimately would be the American dream livers, the American dreamers here in the United States, only they live in China under a dictatorship of autonomy and autocracy, totalitarianism, stutteringism, authoritarian rule. That's what I was thinking of. Authoritarianism. They live in an authoritarian dictatorship, so they can't do what we do, but they still support him for the same reasons that we do. Goes on to say that most of the people that support Donald Trump in China, not surprisingly, are the people that would be like us, the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the free spirits, the free thinkers. Look at how Donald Trump in 2017 in his trip to China, look at how he conducts himself during the Star-Spangled Banner. Look at our president conducting himself abroad. Look at the way that the Chinese leader conducts himself during our national anthem. What would you rather have as your national leader? The sleepy guy like that, or the one who stands tall and proud for his country when he's the largest and most powerful representative of it abroad? That's clearly the leadership you want. This is a person who the media has targeted for years, and this is just a little bit more recent, and I thought this would be of interest. Kelly Sadler did this piece for Real Clear Politics, says Trump lives up to his promises, including taking on China. Donald Trump is the only president in history who is criticized for delivering on his campaign promises. Back on the campaign trail in 2016, then candidate Trump outlined his plans for an American economic revival. He promised a couple things, right? Quote, a bold new tax reform, done. He promised to scale back years of disastrous regulations, done. He said he would unleash an American energy, done. And last, what he described as the foundation for everything was trade. The president, thus far, has done what he had promised in delivering on trade reform. Last November, the president successfully negotiated and signed a U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, the USMCA, an agreement that put American workers first and businesses first under this protocol, which has yet to be brought to the United States floor by Nancy Pelosi. Now, obviously, this is from a year ago. This is from May. But you can see how far we'd come in 3 years under Donald Trump before this virus. China had nothing against this guy. Donald Trump was owning space in their heads, living rent-free, and this article from Real Clear Politics proves it. I highlighted an important piece at the end here, though. For too long, Washington establishment made believe that Chinese communist regime would reform itself as it grew wealthy from the United States and Western investment. Instead, Beijing has doubled down on espionage, militarization, and authoritarian rule, and I would include in that biological state sponsorship of pandemics.
China is asshole!